Hi there, I'm Jeanette Lane for Simply Cards and Papercraft, and in today's video I'm sharing a few ways to easily add dimension to your cards. Now, incorporating these tips in your card making doesn't take much time and they really do make a difference. Plus it adds a nice touch and some more interest to your cards, and I really feel like it takes your card making to the next level. Plus they're perfect for beginners. Now I'm going to be using the gift set included in Simply Cards and Papercraft issue 189. So really fun spring scene gift set, and it includes an embossing folder, a die set, and also some stamps. So here's a closer look at the spring scenes gift set included in issue 189. So you get 3 dies, a 5x5 embossing folder, and 20 stamps. Now this set is perfect for creating scenes, obviously aptly titled spring scenes, but I wanted to show you again how to add dimension to your cards, how to give the illusion of depth and shadow so that you can create interest, and seriously, you will take your card making to the next level. Now, the first way to create the illusion of depth and shadow and dimension on your cards is to ink the edges of your die cuts. So I'm going to take this little sunshine here and I'm going to die cut that a few times out of this yellow cardstock. I'm also going to be embossing this 5x5 piece of cardstock with the embossing folder included in the Spring Scenes gift set, because I want to show you the difference between inking your die cuts and not inking your die cuts, and how it really does honestly make a difference. So here is my embossed scene, absolutely stunning. And then here is my little sunshine die cut. I cut a few extras beforehand. So when I put that on my card, it looks a little flat, a little boring. So what we're gonna do is we're going to ink the edges with some distress inks. So here I have Wild Honey, but I also have Spiced Marmalade, which you can see is just a shade darker. So depending on how contrasting you want the edges of your die cut to be, I would suggest, going for, if you want a subtle contrast, then go for the color that matches your cardstock. But if you want something that's a little bit bolder, that'll really stand out, then go for the darker color. So I'm gonna go for Spiced Marmalade. And I have my little mini ink blending tool. So I'm just going to dab my little blending tool into the felt of my Spiced Marmalade. And I'm just going to go over the edges of my die cut. So there is my little sunshine die cut with the inked edges in the color Spiced Marmalade. As you can see, it pops a little bit more. So now when I put it on my card, it's a lot more interesting. I also wanted to illustrate this tip with the clouds here. So I cut these from white cardstock using the cloud shaped die. And there you go, these are not inked on the edges. So, I mean, it's cute, but it needs just a little bit more to take it to the next level. And adding ink, inking the edges of your die cuts, it doesn't take much longer, you know what I mean? So it's just a quick way to add some more interest to your card. So here is one that I did, a little cloud. There you can see the edges are inked, and for that I used distress inks as well, and I used weathered wood. So now I can add that cloud to my scene, and it looks a lot better. Now another way to add dimension to your cards is to die cut your shapes multiple times and then layer your die cuts, glue them together to create some thickness, which in turn is going to create shadows and dimension. So let me show you this next technique. So here I have die cut my sun multiple times in different colors, just because I didn't have enough yellow cardstock. So what I'm gonna do is just layer these up. I've layered this sun 4 times, so die cut the sun 4 times and then just glued it together. And as you can see, it's a lot thicker than just one little sun here, one little sun die cut. You can see the thickness there. And you can make this, add more layers or add less layers. It's up to you. But you're gonna see that when I add this to my card, it creates some shadows and it really feels like it's popping off a page. So here is a cloud that I did the same thing. I die cut it multiple times from white cardstock and then layered it and glued it together so you can really see the depth and dimension there. Now I wanted to show you the difference. So here is just one die cut, one cloud die cut, and you can see the difference there. It really pops. And what would be really great to add even more interest and dimension to your card is to have both do a combination of just single die cuts and then also layered die cuts, and it really gives the illusion of like not only depth but distance as well. So I'm going to glue down my die cuts here, and I wanted to show you another way to add dimension to your cards, and that's simply by using foam tape. Now, if you're not familiar with foam tape, it comes in varying thicknesses and also shapes. So there's circle, foam tape circles, but this is just like a strip right there. So we just trim this down to the size that we need. And it literally will lift the element off of your card, whatever element we're trying to glue down. So I'm going to show you on this cloud here. And it just is such a great, it's a staple. You definitely need some foam tape in your craft stash just to add some dimension, to quickly add dimension to your cards. So there's my foam tape strip on the back of that card, and I'm just gonna remove the release paper. And then I can add that to my embossed scene. So I wanted to add my little animals, and these are stamped on white and then colored with alcohol markers, and these are included in the Spring Scenes gift set. And so what we want to do is make sure that on our foreground, so the bottom half of our card, the bottom half of our scene, that's where we're going to put our larger elements, our larger stamped images. And then in the distance at the top half of our card, that's where we're going to put our smaller stamped images. So if we put our sheep over here in the distance by this fence, that would be a very large, very large sheep. It would just kind of throw off the perspective a little bit. So what we want to do is keep our little sheep down here at the bottom, our foreground, so it looks like he's closer to us because he is on the larger side. And then we want to put our bunny, which is a lot smaller, in the distance. So we would put our bunny in somewhere in the middle, kind of there by that fence would be perfect. And I'm also going to use foam tape for my sheep. So I'm just going to put a little strip on the back of my sheep and then glue him down. That looks good right there. And then for my bunny, I'm just going to use my Cosmic Shimmer liquid adhesive. And we can just glue him there. Looks good. Now, another way to add dimension to your cards and to create the illusion of depth and distance, especially in a scene card, is to use gray colored inks. So we have this gorgeous little flock of birds here flying in the distance, and what I'm going to do is take those and I want to stamp them in my background. I've mounted my bird stamps onto my stamping block. Now I want them to appear like they're really far away, so what I'm going to do is not stamp them in black because that would be too crisp and too clear, and we want to give the illusion that there is some distance here in this scene, like they're really far away. So I'm going to use a gray ink pad, and London Fog from Memento is perfect for that. We're just going to stamp these in the distance. Now, because I've stamped my birds with a light gray ink, they really do appear like they're off in the distance. Oh, I forgot my little lamb, so I just want to add him here. I forgot about him. I just found him wandering astray. So what I'm going to do is glue him here next to his mama, but I want him to appear like he's right behind her, so I'm not going to add any foam tape to him. I'm just going to use some liquid adhesive. Now, another easy way to add depth and dimension to your cards is to add shadows to your die cuts or also your stamped images. So I have this alcohol marker, and this is in a very light gray color. This is CG1, and these are little tipsies. So what you can do is just open this up to the fine tip. So it's got a dual tip. One's a bullet tip, broad tip, and the other one is a fine tip. And then you can simply draw some shadows on the edges of your elements that are glued down. So around our little lamb, around his mama, And we want to put some underneath their little hooves. So there you can see the shadows that I've drawn in with my alcohol markers. They're very faint, and if you want a stronger shadow, then you would just go one shade darker. So with Little Tipsies, it would be CG3. So let me show you the difference there. When you're first coloring your cardstock, it looks really dark, but as the ink absorbs into the paper, it just lightens up a little bit. Now you can also create shadows around your stamped images with a light gray marker. So what you do is you stamp your image and then color some shadows around it. And this is a great way to make one layer stamped makes. So let me show you using this beautiful umbrella in the Spring Scenes stamp set. So I'm just gonna grab my umbrella and mount it onto, whoops, it's a little stuck there. I'm gonna mount it onto my stamping block. My little birds were trying to fly away, trying to escape. And then I'm going to take my Memento ink. I'm not going to use London Fog. I'm going to switch it out to Tuxedo Black, which is just a shade of black. And we're going to stamp our cardstock multiple times with this beautiful umbrella stamp. So here are my stamped umbrellas up close, and as you can see, they look a little flat, super cute, but just a little flat. So what we're gonna do is take our Little Tipsy, again in CG1, and start to add some shadows to the umbrella. And we wanna make sure we have the fine nib. So I'm just going to draw a shadow around my umbrellas and give them some depth. And like I mentioned earlier, this is perfect if you're making one layer makes, which are great if you're trying to save on postage by sending, your cards via mail. Then they will be lighter if they're just single layer cards. Now, just that tiny little bit of shadow has really helped our stamped umbrellas pop. So I've added some Distress Oxide to the white space around my stamped umbrellas, and the color that I used is Peacock Feathers, and I applied it with a water brush. Now, as you'll notice, the shadows around my umbrellas were a little bit light, so I just went back with a CG3, so that is one shade darker of the gray of CG1. And it's the next shade up, and so you get those nice shadows on your umbrella, and it gives the illusion of depth. So here are the two things that I made during this video, just illustrating different ways to add dimensions to your cards. And now it's time to finish these up. So let me add just a few little more things here and there, maybe a sentiment or two, and then mount them onto card blanks, and I'll be done. So here are my completed cards with lots of depth and dimension, and it didn't take that long to achieve that effect. And hopefully it inspired you to try it out. And also, don't forget to pick up this gorgeous Spring Scenes die embossing folder and stamp set included in issue 189 of Simply Cards and Papercraft. I'm Jeanette Lane for Simply Cards and Papercraft. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in a video real soon.